In today's video, we'll be covering who will take the crown for the EV market. Will it be Tesla? Will it be NIO? Or will it be Xpeng? Stick around because I'm diving deep into these three companies to find out who will come out on top. If you're new to my channel, then welcome. My name is Jason, and on here you'll find videos on personal finance, investing, and money related topics. So if you're interested in any of those videos, including technical analysis on companies, hit the subscribe button down below so you don't miss out on future content. Also, leave a like on this video because it does help with the YouTube algorithm and it does help support the channel. And just a quick disclaimer, I am not a financial advisor. This is just for entertainment purposes only. So if you're ever investing into any type of company, always consult with a professional. And also, I am invested into Tesla. With that being said, let's jump right into it. First one on the list is Tesla, and I don't think Tesla needs an introduction because everyone knows about this company, what they do, the products that they offer, and also how quickly this company has been growing. And Tesla has a few more vehicles that will be coming out, and this is including semis as well. They've got their Tesla Roadster, they've got the Cybertruck, they've also got the Model S Plaid version, and also a semi-truck. And they've got their popular lineup of their vehicles such as the Model S and X, and also the 3 and the Y, which have been very popular amongst consumers. And despite selling just vehicles, Tesla also has their foot in the door with solar panels. And taking a look at Tesla's year-to-date chart, you can see that they're up over 720% year-to-date. And if you take a look at a broader view and take a look at the 5-year chart, they're up over 1500% in the last 5 years. And at the time of recording this video, Tesla has a market cap of $668.905 billion. And they've got a crazy PE ratio of 1,349. And their EPS is sitting at 0.52 currently. And finally, Tesla has crossed $700 per share. And taking a look at Tesla's earnings, you can see here Q3 of 2020, they beat their earnings. And they're expected to release their Q4 earnings on January 27th. And looking at Tesla's annual financials, you can see here year over year, they've been killing it in revenue. And switching over to the quarterly financials, you can see here Q3 of 2020 was outstanding for this company and their earnings are increasing as well. And taking a look at the recommended rating from the analysts, currently Tesla is sitting at a 2.8, which is closer to a hold. Average analyst price target for Tesla is sitting at $431 per share, which right now Tesla is way above that at $705. And currently Tesla is a leader in EV production, but they may have some competition with a company called NIO in China. And I'll cover this shortly. And in the third quarter, Tesla reported revenue growth of 39.2% year over year, which took that to $8.77 billion. And when it comes to the production of their vehicles, the production of the Model S and X deliveries did fall year over year to 15,275, but it did rise 44% sequentially. And their Model 3 and Model Y deliveries actually rose rapidly from 79,703 units last year all the way to 124,318 in Q3. And Tesla's delivery target for 2020 is sitting at 500,000 deliveries, and the bulk of that would be coming from the Model Y in Shanghai in order to reach that goal. And ending off the third quarter, Tesla has increased their cash over the quarter to $14.5 billion. And Tesla's Giga Berlin factory is expected to start production in mid-2021, which will bring Tesla's production capacity to over 1 million vehicles per year. And with the competition growing in the EV market, with other manufacturers coming up with their own EV vehicles, I still think Tesla will be ahead of everyone else just because they've been in the game for so long and finally everyone else is finally waking up and deciding to make EV vehicles. And despite Tesla doing very well this year, there are some people who have actually suffered with Tesla, and those are the short sellers because they bet against Tesla. Let's take a moment of silence for those short sellers and hope to try again. Let's quickly go through the balance sheets and income sheets of Tesla and see how they did. So taking a look at Tesla's revenue compared to Q2 of 2020 and Q3 of 2019, you can see here in Q3 of 2020, they're sitting at $8.8 billion, which is much higher than Q2 of 2020 and also 2019. Their net income has also increased drastically because in Q3 of 2020, their net income was $331 million, where in Q2 of 2020, it was sitting at 104 million, and Q3 of 2019, it was at 143 million. Tesla's adjusted EPS also went up, where in Q3 of 2020, it was 76 cents, and their operating cash flow has increased incredibly to $2.4 billion in Q3 of 2020. And also their free cash flow has increased to $1.4 billion in Q3 of 2020. So what's my take on Tesla? In my opinion, if Tesla keeps growing their production for their vehicles and also coming out with the full self-driving as well, they still have a ton of room to grow over the next few years. And despite having more and more players in the EV game now, Tesla will still be leading them, as Tesla's far from just being a car company. Next up is Tesla's direct competitor in China, and that's NIO. And a major turning point for NIO is coming up because their 4th annual NIO Day is scheduled for January 9th, which they should have a few big announcements. And it's expected that NIO will be expanding its lineup of electric cars, including its first sedan model. For those of you that are not familiar with NIO, they are exactly like Tesla but on a smaller scale. However, they are rapidly growing, and their main focus is in China currently. And also, NIO will be coming out with a larger 150 kilowatt battery as well, and an update to their NP2 vehicle platform, which would allow for more advanced autonomous driving technology. And at the beginning of 2020, NIO's sales declined, and that was obviously due to the breakout of the pandemic, but their sales quickly rebounded, and in Q2, NIO's deliveries went up 191% year over year. And in Q3, NIO's deliveries jumped 154%. And in China, NIO has 2 direct competitors, which are Li Auto and Xpeng. And I'll be covering Xpeng right after NIO, so stay tuned. And the competition is getting very, very fierce because the Tesla Model 3 sedan was the #2 best-selling EV in China in November. And JP Morgan forecast that NIO could take a massive 30% slice of the premium EV market. And currently, NIO sells their ES8 and ES6 electric SUVs and their newer EC6 electric crossover. NIO had just over 100% year-over-year growth in their deliveries for October, and their ES6 accounted for most of the deliveries. And in total, all in all, the EC6, ES6, and the ES8 models reached over 63,000 units. And if we take a look at NIO's 6-month chart, you can see that in the last 6 months, NIO has grown over 516%, which is incredible to see. And if we switch that to the 1-year chart, you can see here they grew over 1,200%. So just like Tesla, NIO is also a rapidly growing company. And as the recording of this video, NIO has a market cap of $75.919 billion. And their beta is sitting at 2.88, and their EPS is currently at -44. And if we pull up NIO's earnings, you can see that Q1, Q2, and Q3 of 2020, they've been beating their earnings expectations. And in January, NIO will be providing how many deliveries they did in December, and this number is expected to be good. And if we look at their annual financials, you can see here it looks very, very bad, especially their earnings. But as time goes on, just like Tesla, they will shrink their earnings from a negative to a positive. But if you switch over to the quarterly financials, you can already see their earnings have been getting closer and closer to becoming positive, and also their revenue has been growing. And the recommended rating for NIO by the analysts is sitting at 2.3, which is closer to a buy. And the average analyst price target for NIO is $40.75, where currently NIO sits at $48.70. And if we quickly look over NIO's financial highlights for the 3rd quarter of 2020, you'll be very surprised on how well this company is doing. So all of these numbers that I'm going to be going over are in RMB, which is their currency. But they do provide it in US dollars, so I'll be saying it in US dollars instead. Looking at their vehicle sales, in the 3rd quarter of 2020, their vehicle sales were sitting at $628.4 million. And this represented an increase of 146.1% from the 3rd quarter of 2019. And comparing that to the 2nd quarter of 2020, this was a 22.4% increase. And moving on to the total revenues, NIO had $666.6 million in revenue in the 3rd quarter of 2020, and this represented an increase of 146.4% compared to the 3rd quarter in 2019. And comparing that to the 2nd quarter of 2020, this was an increase of 21.7%. And if we take a look at their net loss, Comparing that from Q3 of 2019 to Q3 of 2020, you can see it's getting smaller and smaller, and I have no doubt in my mind that this company will see a positive very soon. So the question is, should you be buying into NIO? And in my opinion, I am looking to build some position into NIO because I do see this company doing really well in the near future, and also with their delivery numbers coming out for December very soon, I think those numbers are going to look very promising to investors, and it's just going to continue and be better and better in the future. And also, not to mention, NIO is backed by the Chinese government, as they're all for it for the EV vehicles. And last but not least, we're going to talk about another Chinese EV automaker, Xpeng. Xpeng debuted in late August, and since then they have seen a massive spike and also have encountered a massive drop. Now currently they have two EV models, one is the G3 and one is the P7. Now as we can tell by the trend from Tesla and NIO, whether Xpeng turns a profit or not, that necessarily does not matter, because just like Tesla and NIO, at first they were in the negative, and NIO still is, but Tesla just came out of it. So, you know, as for an EV car company, that is completely normal if you're in the negative and not turning a profit. And unlike Nikola and Fisker, Xpeng actually has produced thousands of vehicles. And Xpeng's P7 vehicle is getting a lot of attention since it hit the Chinese market on June 29th. It's sleek and luxurious. It's a 4-door fastback sedan that was brought to life by the French designer Rafik Farag. And since the release of this vehicle, they have sold more than 11,300 vehicles. And they're also looking to get into the European market. And they've already started this because they've sent 100 vehicles of their G3 SUVs to Norway. Now, 100 vehicles may not seem like a lot, but this just paves the way for them to send on more and more vehicles to Europe. And since Xpeng last reported their vehicle deliveries, which were up 266% year over year to 8,578 units, their P7 deliveries did top 6,210, which is a huge increase from the 325 that they did in the last year's Q2. And the company reported about $1.8 billion in cash and cash equivalents, which can give them a lot of opportunity to expand and invest in themselves. And their Q4 deliveries are forecasted to be around 10,000 units. And this would mean about 211% increase over the last year. So if you take a look at Xpeng's 6-month chart, and at the time of making this video, Xpeng has a market cap of $30.546 billion. And because this company is very new, it will take some time to actually see if they'll be good enough to make it and compete with NIO and Tesla. Because if we take a look at their earnings, you can see here Q3 of 2020, they did miss their earnings target. And looking at their annual financials, there's really nothing to compare as this company just debuted in August. And if we switch to their quarterly financials, you can really see nothing was happening in their revenue from Q3 of 2019 to Q2 of 2020, but then all of a sudden in Q3 of 2020 they saw a huge spike in their revenue. But then on the flip side, they also saw a large negative number for their earnings. And taking a look at their recommended analyst rating, currently it's at a 2.4, which is closer to a buy. And also taking a look at the average analyst price target for Xpeng, it's sitting at about $49.04, where currently the price is $42.83. If we quickly go over Xpeng's financial results of Q3 of 2020, like I mentioned before, their deliveries of their vehicles reached 8,578, which represented an increase of 265.8%. And comparing that to the third quarter of 2019, where they had only 2,345 vehicles delivered. And the deliveries of their P7 vehicle, which reached 6,210, and comparing that with the 325 that they did in the second quarter of 2020. Moving on to Xpeng's total revenues, they saw revenues of $293.1 million for the third quarter of 2020, and this represented an increase of 342.5% from the same period comparing in 2019. And if you compared that to the second quarter of 2020, this was an increase of 236.9%. And the total revenue from the vehicle sales, they saw $279.6 million for the third quarter of 2020, and this was an increase of 376% from the same period in 2019. And comparing that to the second quarter of 2020, this was an increase of 250.8%. And back in October, Xpeng held its second annual Tech Day, where they announced a ton of cutting-edge autonomous driving and in-car smart technologies. And some features included navigation guided pilot, which is for highways, and memory auto parking for car parks. And this is part of their XPilot 3.0 system, which is the upcoming advanced autonomous driving system. And they also launched another OTA upgrade to its Xsmart OS operating system, which features a prominent in-car voice system that is to engage and continuous driver vehicle dialogues. So what does this mean for Xpeng? Should you invest? Should you wait? Or should you just avoid it? In my opinion, the EV market has been exploded and is going to continue to explode, especially in China. And in my opinion, there's a ton of room for growth for both Xpeng and NIO to grow across China and even in the Europe market. And that's the end of today's video. If you've made it this far, hit the thumbs up button as it does help with the YouTube algorithm and it supports the channel as well. Also, in the comments down below, let me know which company you think will come out on top. Will it be Tesla, Xpeng, or NIO? And I will see you guys on the next video.